Hello and welcome to. I've almost forgotten the name of the show. Yeah, there we go. The comments. It's been too long. We've been away for a week already, haven't we? 2 weeks. I say it's been too long, and I just had one of them senior moments. And oh dear me. Anyway, while I'm getting my thinking back together again, let's hand you over to Henrik to tell you where all the emergency exits are, which you'll probably need.
Yeah, hello everybody, and welcome to the show on this Tuesday. And today it is about cloud computing. And the reason why is because I'm sitting up in the mountains in Switzerland in roughly 800 meters and looking out into a cloud because it's rainy here today. So, okay, back to our housekeeping. Can everybody hear us and can everybody see us? So see, there's a small delay, but it should be coming back. While we are waiting for the response, because it has to go up the mountain, it's steep up here.
The Sherpa's carrying it up now, but and well, I'll tell you what. Instead of sort of saying whether you can hear us or not, why not just say who wants Henrik to turn his camera round and look out across the mountain range rather than in towards Henrik and I? You know, that would be probably a nice, pleasant scene for a beautiful spring afternoon. There we go. I am losing the plot. So schema. That's what we're talking about. I do know, and we went pretty deep 2 weeks ago. We actually, it's quite an amazing surprise, a reaction, not surprise, amazing reaction that we actually got a lot more people engaged in the discussion because of going deep technical, where we've always tried to keep it sort of fairly accessible, shall we say, so that when people come along and go, we don't know what you're talking about, if we just talk fairly try and keep it as stripped down as possible so that everybody can come along with us and understand where we're going. So because this week, because Henrik is up this mountain, halfway, 3/4 of the way up, 800 meters above sea level, and because he's using a mobile connection, I think, and not quite sure of the bandwidth and how it would cope with going and giving screen presentations, we've decided just to go with the flow. We're going to talk around the idea of schema in 2019 and semantic web, what it means, how we should be using it, how we should be using it in our work, in our websites, and so on. And just before I hand you back to Henrik, I'm just going to say, I mean, after the show 2 weeks ago, we sort of both went off down various rabbit holes, and at one point we both came up holding the same book, and we've been buried into all sorts of learning. Honestly, it just goes on and on forever, the depth at which you can go to with this. But really, one of the things that I've always thought about schema is it always just seemed to be so confusing, and I don't know why. I said this last time 2 weeks ago. I really don't know why. The good thing about this last 2 weeks is I've really dug in, and now I'm much more confident. I'm quite happily writing my own schema, and we'll be covering why in a little while. But it just goes to show that actually there isn't a great deal of mystery about schema, really. It's just about embracing it and understanding it, and moving forward. So, Henrik, do you want to sort of take over a little bit now and give us a bit of a summary of your perception of where the semantic web is today and how that impacts on people that are trying to rank their websites?
Yep. Let's first talk about what we know today is we have the web as we know it. It's a link of HTML documents, which is linked together. That's what we understand from, let's say, the concept of the web. And what the web today does, it gives us some HTML markup and CSS markup, which is actually the presentation in a browser of what the human eye is watching on a web page. Then we could talk about semantic web. The semantic web, it's actually a layer above that web. And that semantic web is actually a linking structure of metadata. So when we are talking about the web in general, we're talking about what we're watching on the browser session, and looking at the page, and how that page is marked up is the way it is presented to us. The search engines, they will come along, visit that web page, and when they visit the web page, if they don't find any schema in the header or in the page rendering the page, they will try to suggest what the website is about. They're doing that by looking at the H1 tags, the H2 tags, H3 tags, to see if they can build up the structure of the page and the importance of the page. On the other hand, if you're looking at if you look at the semantic web, what will happen is that the bots will come around to a page. They will look at the header, and if they find some schema, they will digest that schema, and they'll be told what the page is about. So if you build up a page with several schemas, which you can have JSON LD schema for the local business. You can have for the web page in general. I'll come back to that. You can have a schema about the person, i.e. the author of the page, etc., etc. So you can actually stack schema into that single page which you're looking at. And the benefit of that is that Google or Bing or Yahoo, they will be able to digest, okay, what is this web page about? Because they can read the schema, they get the metadata, they get it categorized, so they will understand what it's all about. So generally speaking, if you mark up your web page with schema, you have a chance to improve your rankings of 20 to 25%. That's what we have seen from different sources, that they have been able to prove that. For instance, Schema claim that what they have seen for their clients is that they get a ranking boost of 20 to 25%. So that's one argument for actually marking your web page up with Schema. And Tony, do you want to add anything to that a little bit?
Well, yeah. The trouble is, I just had this message from my headset saying battery is low. So while I'm fumbling around here, I'm just trying to plug myself in again before. There we go. That's it. Safety. Hopefully, can you still hear me?
Yep, we can.
Hello.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Tony.
Oh dear. Hello. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Tony. Well, we seem to have a little problem here. So, Tony, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, my headset died. So I finally actually managed to get a decent headset, and then of course I've forgotten to charge it in time for the show. So there we go. Hey ho, that's helpful. That's useful. I'll take it off, and we'll go back to the echoey old one. And also with all the other fun and games around here, apparently I've got the neighbourhood kids dancing around outside the window, and so I've had to close the windows, and now I'm sweltering in the sun. So this is going great. This is. Put this down as one of the classic episodes. Here we go. Back to Schema. Yes. Where did we get to? It is without a shadow of a doubt a very, very important aspect of any web page now. I'm like I say, I'm actually very, very engaged at the moment, just actually writing the schema, manually writing it, creating it. Well, I've created some spreadsheets to auto-populate and things like that. And I'm actually building out web pages and testing these web pages to see how much that works. Now, one of the conversations, I don't know whether you want me to take it down this road yet or not, but one of the conversations that we had over the weekend was, of course, how to use Schema and what people are doing. I've seen a lot of discussion in the Skype groups where people are talking about, the different plugins, which one's good, which one's bad. And there's all sorts of opinions. Some people like this and other people's like another one. And there's plenty out there. And I think there's a lot to be said for when you find a tool that you like, then stick with it. But almost there always seems to be, well, there's two things really to take into consideration here. One is if you're pushing a button and hoping that that's going to churn out good schema that's going to actually make you rank, I think you're missing the idea really, because if you don't understand it in the first place, then you can't really know and can't really hope for a plugin to do the work for you. It's the same with anything. If you take a calculator and type in random numbers and expect the right answer, unless you know what the answer is going to be in advance, unless you're not, I don't mean exactly, but I mean, a ballpark figure, that 8 times 8 is going to be around 64, if not exactly, then if that calculator turns around and says it's 53, and you didn't have that answer already in your head, you go, oh, okay, then 53, and then get a job in Burger King. But needless to say, so therefore you sort of need to know you need to know the mechanics, and the best way to understand the mechanics is actually get in and code. Now, when we've sort of tried working with some of these tools, there's some of the simple ones, which you turn it on, it'll grab your local data and it'll put up local business and it'll just do it across every site, across every page, every post in your site. There's other plugins that will let you get down to the basics, down to page basics, like SEO Ultimate Plus, let's say. I know there's a new version coming out any day now or any time now, but currently you have to choose. You can choose on a page level, on a post level, but you have to then define that page around one type of schema. Is it an article? Is it a blog post? Is it a product? Is it a local business? Whatever. And I know Henrik has got some things to say about that in a short moment too. So, but you can't get really complex, not easily anyway. You can't. It's not easy to get really in depth about what's on a page. For example, one of the pages that I've been working on today, you've got a web page there. It's a local business page, but it's selling a product. It's got WooCommerce on there, so it's a product page, and then it's got a product video. So there's video schema to be had, and you can even get down into image schema and everything else. So if you think about it, if I could tell Google with all these different strands of schema exactly what's on that page and how it all relates to each other, that page becomes so much more powerful than if whatever WP schema, or I'm not saying that's the one, but one of those tools just dumps a local business schema on there, the same as every other page on your website. So I'm going to stop ranting in a minute. But this is what I mean. Really speaking, you really need to get in and do it manually, get to understand it, get to understand how to build it, where to put it, how to use it on the page, and then maybe start looking at the plugins. It's anyway, that, and then you'll start having much more success if you want to go down the route of plugins. Or you might just think, well, hang on a minute, once you've got a system, it's actually not that complicated anyway. So Henrik, what would you like to add to that?
You're right. There exist different plugins, and Bookie is actually asking: is there a plugin for schema, or do you have to do it manually for the 100 pages that you have on a VP site? There exist plugins that will automatically try to detect your schema on each individual page. And one of those is actually the Schema app plugin, where you can actually go in having the schema generated, and then you can mark up additional schema on the pages, which is not detected by the, let's say, the plugin. That will create dynamically a schema for you, and that is actually one of the better ones, but also one of the more pricey ones. You will have they have a basic version which you can use which you can get from the WordPress repository. And you have the VP schema, which is another one you can use. But as Tony said, generally what you should try to do is to understand the schema in itself first. So you'll be able to look at the schema being generated by these plugins and maybe take corrective measures for schema that's not properly written. Per definition, each individual page on the web is considered as a web page. And if you go to schema.org and you / I think it's / web page, then you will find all the properties which is actually relating to a web page. And small things is a property like breadcrumbs, which tells the bot that it will give you a set of links to the page and understand where the navigation is on the page. You will have things like significant links. You will have whether the page is speakable. You will have what kind of let's say what the page is about, or whether there is a special page or a paragraph on the page which is the most important one on the page. So
I think Henrik, what you said about that with when we was talking before was the significance or the demonstration of that in action is when you go and look at a rich snippet, for example, a knowledge panel, and Google are lifting a bit that they think answers a question or your search query, and well, that when you follow the link, it might actually take you onto a page and further down the page. It doesn't necessarily take you to the top of the page, does it? So
no, what it does is Google is trying to answer the question which is they have shown in the rich snippet. So they will take you to a part of the page where they believe the question is answered. And we have seen and next show I can demonstrate a little bit, but we have seen questions which has been answered by a snippet from a video where Google is actually bumping up a video. They have pointed at 1.41 is where the answer in the video is located, and it goes to 1.4 or 1.53 or whatever. So Google is actually reading videos based on annotation maybe, or based on the AI, where they're trying to digest the annotation by artificial intelligence. So they actually know much more about the pages than we think, and they're trying to let's say create a virtual bookmark on the page exactly where they believe that the answer is on the page. So why won't we simply mark up our pages with, for instance, a website schema, where we will tell the bots that this is a thing, this is creative work, this is a web page, and on this web page, the paragraph so and so is the most important thing, or what this web page is actually about. And then Google has a much better way to present to our searchers the information which they believe is what the searcher is trying to get an idea about or searching about. So that's just one of the things that you can do in terms of the actual web schema. And the web schema has a lot of properties which you should look into. Most will just put on the schema, web page, URL so and so, maybe breadcrumbs, nothing else. but there's so much more properties that you can use actually to tell the bots. And we have to understand that Google doesn't rank websites, they rank web pages. And when they're ranking web pages, and you're trying to rank a web page on page 1, why don't you tell them exactly what it's about, how we come there, how we can do it, and then actually do as much as possible to get where we want as fast as possible.
Yes, it's sort of the same principle as using Page Optimizer Pro there, isn't it? Where people are popping their homepage and then thinking that the rest of the site is just going to follow happily along behind. But of course, it doesn't. You have to get in there, and you've got to really treat every page as an individual. Same with schema. You need to put that schema on every single page, and you need to adapt it for every page, because there's no point in telling Google that every page is exactly the same, because surely it's not. And it does get very complicated. Now, if you're trying to sort of, if you go to schema.org, and I think this is one of the killers for me in the early stages. When you go to schema.org, you just look at it and you go, oh my God, what is this? I mean, it's not the most user-friendly website in the world. The definitions, the terminology, and everything. They might as well throw a book of Urdu at me. It sort of was just alien. I didn't like. I mean, I suppose also because I'm listening to it rather than reading it. I suppose that makes a difference to me as well. But anyway, it was sort of a bit of an alien landscape, I would say, schema.org. And you're looking around and you're getting lost in all the definitions and everything. And a lot of them don't really mean anything because it's all technical jargon. It's all this language that them and Amazon like to use when they're trying to define technology. I found this other website, which was, what was it called? It was called Steal My Schema, I think, or something like that. That was it, about stealmyschema.com. Go and have a look at that. I will check it, and if I'm wrong, I'll put it in the description.
Oh, it's I think it's called JSONLD, isn't JSONLD.com, where it said you can steal my schema.
Is it right? Okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah, and it is JSON. It is a JSON LD markup as well. Yeah, so it probably is. Google Steal My Schema. It'll come up. So we'll try and find that link for you. But that just suddenly is so easy. I mean, it's not. But don't take it as being the end game. It's not the answer. It's a suggestion. And basically, what you've got is you click on product, and there he gives you a snippet of schema, what they use, and you've got all the different variations that you can click on. And you can go and look at it in raw HTML. It'll just open it nice and cleanly in a separate window, copy and paste, and drop it down onto a notepad and fill in all the gaps with your own data. Or like I do, I'll put it all into a spreadsheet, spread it all out, and then I can just literally just type in the cells in the middle, concatenate them all, and build up the schema markup that way. So whichever way you want to go, but I mean, Notepad is probably as easy as anything in the early stages. But once you start doing that, again, you like I say, it's not extensive. It's not the full list by any stretch. It's like I downloaded their product schema. It didn't have price. It didn't have sale price. It didn't have subsets like this pack, what's in the pack. It didn't have. There's lots of attributes that were missing, but it's a starting point. And as long as you can start working with that starting point and getting familiar with it and understanding where that should be placed on the page. And did you talk about place pagement yet, Henrik?
Pardon?
Did you talk about place pagement? Not
yet. Not yet.
I better shut up then. How about let's talk about page? Yeah. So have a look at that. If you're really sort of struggling, it's a bit more of a friendly environment, I feel. And you might just think, well, hang on a minute, what's all the fuss about? This is dead simple. Copy that, adjust it, have a play around, put it on your page in the right pages. You should also test the schema before you put it there to make sure it's not broken. And Henrik might tell you where to go for that, but because off the top of my head, I can't think. But again, you can Google it, can't you? Schema testing tools.
But you have the Google Validator tool, and you also have the Google markup tool, which you can use actually to mark up your own schema. So that's something we'll go over in the next show.
Have we? Yeah.
Pardon?
No, well, I didn't know how the time was going. So,
We have run for 25 minutes now.
so do you want to
But
have a quick chat about
yeah,
page placement?
so the schema in itself, the JSON LD, which Google prefers, is placed normally in the header of the web page. So you can actually put in, let's say, one schema, which is the maybe if your organization, then you have organization a schema put in. But if you have a branch of that organization and you have localization pages, on that page you will both have the organization schema, but you will also have the local business schema, telling Google that actually this page is about a local business of that organization. Or you could have what you call microdata. The HTML5 actually enables you to have microdata as an inline markup of your data. And you can combine both if you like. But generally speaking, you have the RDF format, which is XML schema, which is a little bit more complicated. You have the JSON LD. You have the microdata, which you can use. And if you want an understanding of the JSON LD markup language, I will put up a playlist where you can actually get a quite good understanding, basic understanding of the coding of it. And it's a really good overview of it. So what I'll do is create a small playlist with videos explaining that and put it up into the comment section here. There's a question here, Tony, from Casey Lindsay. Henrik, if you use Schema app and put it in, and it put in duplicate schema, how would it get about to stripping it out? I think you can, in this schema plugin, actually suppress the schema for a specific page, if you like that, or if it creates the schema, you won't put in additional schema, or if you want to correct that schema for the that the schema app is putting in, you can either edit that schema in the lower parts of the page of your web page, or simply, as I said, suppress it and put it in your own schema, which you put in the header. But if you have a subscription for the Schema app, then you will be able, I think it's $30 per month for one website that you're paying. But there you will have the ability to mark up the schema as well. But we will have Marta from Schema app on a later show, and she will go into all the details about how it works, how you can get around this, and I'm not sure when we will have her on, but she's one of the guests coming up in our Schema session series here. So I hope that answered that, Casey or Thomas, whoever's behind that.
Okay, yeah, and if you go to the really high paid plans, then you can manage all your schema from their dashboard, can't you, on the website, and you can push the schema out to the different. I think that's what.
Yeah, but you can do that for one. They have the one site subscription, and then you have for several sites, also what they call business, and then you have the agency versions, which is more expensive. But we will come back to those plans.
Yeah, and I think there's PSV as well a while ago that does sort of similar sorts of things. It's quite sort of complex as well. So there's various different ones out there. What you need to sort of understand also is if you ever stop paying for these things, you don't want the data to disappear, which of course was one of the problems that came out from the word lift, whatever markup that they were creating, that is dependent on keeping paying, so you've still got access to their database. So what we're trying to do at the moment, this is what we're working through at the moment also, is working out the alternatives, working out the route, the roadmap to actually create that data on the site so that we're in control of it, because I think that's the ultimate goal of anything. You need to be in control of your own data. And
Exactly.
this is another good reason about getting down and dirty with Schema and whatever. Really.
Ultimately, we will show you how to build up your own knowledge base on your own website, which is actually a pointer to your own metadata on your own website, and make that connection to other knowledge bases like the LOD, etc., etc. How do you connect those? But that's a more complicated topic, so we won't cover that today here.
Can't do that. That's on a mountainside.
Oh, we can. And somebody asked me to see if I could turn my camera around and show the. You can see out there, it's gray. The balcony is there, and it just looking directly into the cloud. So yes, it's cloud computing today.
So you could be in you could be anywhere really, couldn't you? If it's just cloud, it could be city smog in Birmingham or somewhere really, I suppose. But
I could, but
but it
I'll
is.
take some pictures. So how nice it is.
Yeah, if it had been on any other day, they'd have got a glorious view and snow-capped mountains in the distance and everything else, wouldn't they? Yeah. So, any more questions?
I don't have any. I only had those two. So, any more questions out there? Things that you would like us to go over to on the next show, maybe? We'll appreciate giving some, let's say, feedback on what we'll like or what you would like us to cover. But we will go deeper into the root of schema, where to place it, how to place it, the different types of schemas. We will discuss the different app or WordPress plugins that we know about. As I told you, we will be having Marta from Schema app on as a guest on one of the show where we'll go. It'll be a longer show than just half an hour, where we'll go into Schema app and their way of dealing with schema. And yeah, that's the route that we're going. And of course, we will go more into what we started last time, the knowledge base, looking into how you can build up your own. So
that's it. All good stuff. Yeah, I've got nothing more to add. Amazingly, except sorry for all the chaos, but it provides a little bit of entertainment, probably.
Well,
lesson
cloud
learned.
computing, isn't that about chaos?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lesson learned. Charge headset. Turn off the kids. And, yeah. And remember what the topic is in the first place. So there we go. I've just about hit everything, yeah, including working with kids. The only thing I haven't done is animals, I suppose. So let's see if I can find a spider somewhere. But no, that's it. Thank you very much for being here this week. We'll see you again same time next week. No more Easter holidays. We're back at work, and we're back on the case, and we're going to bring more stuff to you next week. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, take care, and leave any comments, and we will look at the comments just below the video if we are not having the live comments active. And see you on the next show. Take care.